Welcome to another episode of the Misophonia Podcast. This is episode 17. My name is Adil Ahmad, and I have misophonia. Elise is my guest today from Portland, Oregon. She's a fellow misophonia sufferer who's been pretty active in the community, working briefly for the Misophonia Association, and also running a bi-weekly video chat with misophones from around the world. I met Elise at the Misophonia Convention last fall. We'll talk about that, we'll talk about raising awareness, and really dive into experiences dealing with Miso on a daily basis at work and just in life. I'm a little late sending out the latest batch of stickers, but please keep emailing me your mailing address and I'll send you some. You can email hello@misophoniapodcast.com, and also just let me know what you think of the podcast. Now, here's my chat with Elise. Welcome, Elise, to the podcast. Good to finally have you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Cool. So, obviously, we've known each other from the convention, and yes, I think it's the first time we're talking since the most recent convention. How things been so far?
Going to that convention, and I worked a little bit of it. It's kind of emotionally all-consuming. I don't know what your experience was like, but it's really cool to meet a ton of people that have the same thing, and we don't have to explain each other. We can just kind of give the look, the stare,
The glare,
the glare, and start laughing. But it also brings up a lot of emotions for me, especially seeing the younger people, kind of a little bit of regret. I mean, I wish my parents had been more supportive and that we had known at that point what was happening. But also I'm a little jealous too, because they have this whole community. So, yeah, it's kind of mixed emotions. It was great though. Overall, it was, I think, really positive. I'm hoping you had a similar sort of positive experience.
Yeah, that's why I keep going back, and that's kind of where this came from is trying to recreate those lobby/lounge conversations that we all have, which are at least as good as the sessions that are there. So just trying to keep that moving forward and bring it to other people, because those are it's always surreal and a huge sense of relief, and memories that you can think about when you're also to kind of, you can use those memories to push out the visions of strangling people in everyday life. So
and not feeling so strange that we all have them. I mean, trying to explain it to someone without misophonia, I don't see myself as a violent person, but I do have those urges.
Right. Yeah, and it's far beyond the classic like annoyance. And it's also interesting to just kind of be around people that you kind of have to now think about not triggering. It's interesting to see the other side a little bit.
That's true too. We were talking about that we have a video chat every other Saturday, a few folks, and one of the people mentioned that he had accidentally triggered some people and he felt terrible about it, but it was also good to kind of be on the other side of it.
Yeah, exactly. So so let's go back then to I don't think I ever heard your story of growing up and whatnot. What around what are your earliest memories of it?
I don't have a number, like an age, but I just remember as a teenager starting to be aware that certain sounds bothered me, and it was mostly eating sounds. I grew up north of Seattle, up by the border in Washington State, and my parents were really religious. I was homeschooled. I was pretty isolated, so I didn't really have a lot of resources anyway, to ask or maybe talk about what was happening. And my parents were not sympathetic. I mean, it's hard to even think about, but my dad would chase me around with an apple, and he thought I was crazy, and he would tell me I was crazy, and it was just, it was really upsetting.
Yeah.
I thought I was crazy. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's
so not positive. I mean, it could have been so much better, or at least, not negative, neutral, as in, yes, we know you have an issue and we don't know what it is, but it was flat out, you're crazy. So that stuck with me for a really long time. I mean, I didn't really get any understanding of this until maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So a few decades of having kind of this secret thing that I didn't even know what to call it. Yeah.
So it started as food sounds at home with the family. Do you have siblings and stuff? Or
Yeah, I'm the oldest. I have two younger
okay.
siblings. Neither one of them has misophonia that I know of, and I've talked to them about it. And my siblings are pretty understanding. Neither one of my parents is around anymore, so that's kind of, there's no closure, but I'm okay with just not having that
Yeah.
conversation with them anymore. I just don't think it would be productive. Yeah, and movement bothered me from a really early age too. I can remember being on a plane flight when I was probably in my early 20s, and this person across the aisle was jiggling their leg, and it took me until well after I discovered misophonia to even understand that there's that visual component too. It's just so much more complex than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah, so you remember visual triggers from back then. Yeah, it seems like a lot of people are develop visual triggers kind of later on. I mean, maybe they just noticed it later on, but that's
I don't
interesting.
know, yeah. And I didn't make that connection between the two for a really long time. Um, and I mean, I don't know how you found out. For me, it was the internet. I would periodically go online and just search because I was so frustrated. And I went to audiologists, I talked to my general doctor, I talked to my shrink, and no one had any idea. So I
Yeah,
think
for
we
me,
all turned into like amateur detectives trying to figure this
yeah,
out.
and I don't even remember if was I. I don't feel like I was looking for it. I remember the article. It was an article by actually I think it was CTV, which is actually a television network in Canada. I was here,
Yeah.
but yeah, there was some interesting article about some dude in Toronto who was he would take a bag of carrots that his girlfriend was eating and throw it against the wall and hide in the bathroom, and
Oh.
it's kind of interesting. But that's yeah, I don't know. So I don't know if I was looking for that or someone sent it to me. But yeah, the internet I think is how a lot of us initially found out about it, or roughly 5 to 10 years ago.
Yeah, and I mean, I give Marsha Johnson a lot of credit. I was a part of that. It was like the 4S. I can't ever remember what the S's are, but
Selective sound sensitivity syndrome. Yes,
thank you. Yes,
yeah. I remember
well
I
done.
went online, tried to start a group, immediately found a group then that's what it was called back then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it seemed like it was kind of sniffing around the edges of what this
Yeah.
was, and it was comforting just that people were talking about it. So yeah, I felt like we were edging closer and closer, and then a few years ago, the research really started coming out, and that's where I find the greatest comfort. Really, is just support groups and then this ongoing research because that's really the only thing that's going to help us. I think.
Yeah, and I mean, the research is still pretty early. There's a lot of promising stuff happening, but it's still really just kind of understanding what's going on, and then treatment. We'll see. That might be years away. That's why I'm kind of like, yeah, I'd like to build as big of a community as possible because that's the most immediate form of therapy that we can have right now, I think.
I think so. I don't honestly hold out a lot of hope for myself as far as a
Mm,
treatment. I mean, maybe, but I feel like it's more likely for the younger
exactly.
generation.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just going to cling to my headphones and
Well, yeah, and I mean, at least they have tools
mhm.
that they can use. I mean, I didn't have headphones as a kid.
Yeah. And so when you were a kid, you were homeschooled. So you weren't like you didn't have to go to class and listen to, everyone eating and munching and stuff. You had your own heart issues at home. Did it start? Did you transition? I don't know how this works. Did you transition out of homeschool to a more public environment at some point, like in college, or maybe you went straight to a job? I'm wondering how that transition was to go into the real world.
Yeah, that's a good question. I really didn't get into a real classroom environment until college. And being a good Baptist kid, I went off to Bible college, which was a huge shock in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I realized pretty early, this is not for me. And also living in a room with three other people who were constantly snacking and making sounds. I mean, it was torture. And it had never occurred to me that all of this agitation I experienced at home would go with me to college, but it did.
So you probably thought maybe this is just limited to my my relationship with my parents or family or whatever.
Kind
And
of,
mhm.
yeah. And I think that's common, right? For a lot of
Yeah,
people, we just notice it with our parents first because that's who we're around or whatever. Maybe the emotional attachment too. I don't know, but yeah. So taking that off to college was not great. I will say on the ladder of like competing priorities, my dislike for where I was kind of outweighed everything else, so it was manageable. But I didn't spend a lot of time in my room either. I've just found ways to be elsewhere. But it was confusing, you know. I mean, it didn't help this kind of internalized notion that I then had that I was crazy. And I don't like that word, but that's what we use.
Yeah, yeah, right.
I didn't really start seeing. I mean, I white knuckled it through college. I did a lot of traveling, and I realized in retrospect, you know, it was easy to not be in one place for very long. I'm the queen of the Irish goodbye, if you know what that is. You know, just like
No.
disappearing at the end of something without saying goodbye because I just can't take it
Oh,
anymore.
the Irish goodbye. Yes, gotcha. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it all makes sense now, but I think it was just pure, you know, survival instinct at the time.
Did it affect like grades or?
I think so. Bible college was definitely a non-starter, and I mean, I knew that wasn't going to be where I ended up. It was just a way to get out of my home environment. I ended up going to University of Washington after I had lived overseas for a while. Again, you know, I didn't really know how to be in a classroom environment, so I was also still kind of learning. But I still remember trying to take a test with someone eating a bag of Cheetos in the row behind me, and just, I mean, I don't even know if I passed. It wasn't one of my favorite classes, but it was just really hard to be in class.
Gotcha.
And in fact, I had to deal with a friend in one class where there was a lot of noises. We would take turns recording the class, so I didn't have to go every time, and I would just listen later. It was easier.
Yeah. And did you know? So when you know, you've also you're meeting a lot of new people. Did you run into anybody who might have been displaying any symptoms that's similar to yours?
No, this was top secret. My family didn't
Yeah.
even know until I would say, I don't know, 10 years ago. My nieces would always laugh at me. They thought I was in the CIA or something because I always was
You would
really
just disappear. Yeah.
I would disappear, but mostly because if we went out for, you know, lunch or something, I was really particular about what seat at the table I wanted to be at. You know, like back to the wall, no one behind me or beside me. I mean, now we can laugh, but it was just so stressful at the time because I just didn't know why it was so important. I just knew that it was.
Gotcha. And so those were your coping mechanisms. You didn't really
Yeah.
you didn't really have you weren't really using sound generation or music as a therapy or anything else. It was mainly like avoidance and controlling the environment.
I think I did use music for sure without really understanding why. And then I knew that white noise was really calming. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've had a noise machine for a long time just for like sleeping or, you know, like a fan. But I didn't really connect it. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little dense, but I did not connect all these dots for a really long time.
A lot of us, I think, just thought we were just extra annoyed. So
Yeah.
and then I mean, fan people use the normals use fans as well to help them go to sleep too. So it's hard to connect. It's not easy to connect dots because it seems like it's on a spectrum of something when it's really the spectrum is a lot wider than we thought initially. So
I think so too. I think my biggest frustration was I really did try to get medical help pretty early on. And I mean, I also have other things, you know, like wonderful panic attacks and anxiety.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe it's all part of a bigger picture too, to some extent. But no one was ever able to help me. And I mean, having a medical professional act like you really are just kind of crazy, or perhaps exaggerating or making things up, it's not helpful.
Yeah, I did have I actually, well, I don't want to talk about it, but I did have a physical a few days ago, and I mentioned that I have this funny just because I wanted it on the record, just as as an awareness. If it ends up in some kind of medical search engine somewhere around the world, I would like to have that word somewhere in my record. So I think he put it down there, but it was just like, oh, so he's like, who diagnosed you with that? And I was like, self-diagnosed. And there's just a few seconds of probably awkward, whatever. But I was like, as long as it gets written in there and it appears in some kind of search engine for doctors and researchers, that's all I need. I don't really need to get into a big conversation about it.
I think that's great. I think, in a sense, we have to pave the way for whatever comes next, even if it doesn't get us anywhere.
Right, right. So you,
And I saw these audiologists in
mm,
Oregon who, they do the full workup, et cetera, et cetera. And they didn't really know what this was, but they were kind of on the right path of, they wanted to give me the white noise generators, the in-ear
yep,
stuff. But at the time it was like, I can't remember, $3,000 a device or something.
yeah.
And I didn't have the money, so I
Was
didn't
that
pursue
since
it.
you knew what misophonia was, or were you trying to get an explanation for this before you knew
It
what
was
misophonia
it was right before.
Okay.
I just kind of was at the end of my rope and
Mm-hmm.
thought, uh, they were doing some kind of research. I don't even remember how I heard about them, but it was a teaching like hospital kind of thing. So, yeah, I took time off of work and like traveled down there for a couple of days. Um,
And was it Dr.
it's
Johnson
just
or was it somebody else?
no, it was through Ohio. Let's
Ah,
see, it's
okay.
OHS, OSHU, OHSU, one of those two, like
Yeah.
a speech and hearing kind of school.
Mm-hmm.
So they might be more aware now. At the time, they really weren't. So I think Marcia, I mean, for sure, was way ahead of the curve as far as just paying attention to people who were mentioning this, whereas I don't think a lot of other people really did connect all of the kind of anecdotal stuff that they were hearing.
Yeah, it's still kind of that case where just kind of it's been a frustratingly slow awareness growing around the world. So I'm hoping stuff like this helps. And then so you were in Portland that whole time. Well, I guess you've been in the Pacific Northwest a lot, and you didn't meet anybody in college with it. As you found out what misophonia was, were you also starting to meet other people? I know there was a fledgling forum at the time for 4S, but yeah, curious when you started to kind of like find other people who had it.
Yeah, I was on that forum, but I was more of a lurker. I never
Yeah.
posted. And honestly, I didn't meet anybody, Adil, until I went to I think the Vegas convention. So
Mm-hmm.
when was
Mm-hmm.
that? 2017. And it was a really last minute decision too. I almost didn't go. I was really kind of scared to meet other people, and I think I must have just seen something online and realized, I could do this. It's a weekend and I wouldn't have to take time off work. I did not go to the Thursday evening reception because I was just too afraid of
Yeah.
mingling. I'm not really sure what all the anxiety was about, but I did show up Friday and for the first, morning session or whatever, and it was just like meeting a bunch of family without all the emotional baggage, of course, but just, people that got it and weren't, you know, I guess I had this sort of fear that we would all just be a bunch of weirdos together, and I didn't
Yeah.
want to be in a room of a bunch of weirdos. And everybody was just so reassuringly just normal and human and great. That was my first experience, and that's what really motivated me to start a video chat. Was I had met some really great people and didn't want to lose touch, and wait another year to talk. So we've built our own little online community. I think I think been a part of one or two of those, but it's just so great every couple of weeks to just talk, or laugh or let people get upset or whatever. I don't really know anybody in real life. I have one coworker who confided in me that they have it, but that's it. I don't know anybody else like in real
Oh,
life.
really? So somebody at your work did they know that you have it first, and so they kind of opened up, or they just
Yeah, it was really strange. I got laid off last year, and so I had shared my resume with a couple of more senior level people at my work, and I don't want to out
yeah.
anybody, so I'm not going to give too many details, but they came to me afterward, and they're getting close to retirement age, so this person's been around for quite a while, and we worked together for over 10 years, and I had no idea, but I always knew I liked going to meetings with this person because they never had food or,
Mm,
never like clicked their pen or anything like that. And so they just kind of closed the office door and said, "Hey, I saw your resume and that you work, very part-time for the association, and I think I have this." And it was a really cool
fascinating.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they had no idea for most of their life, and now guess what? It's a thing.
Well, we'll have to get them on the podcast for the other side of that story.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
they might be interested. I would approach them. They were really curious about the convention and
Mm-hmm.
kind of jealous that they, wish that they could go. I just think they're not very open about it,
Yeah.
other than, just please don't schedule me for a lunch meeting kind of thing. But
Right. Right. Right.
it's nice to have that solidarity. We can kind of connect over that. I just
Yeah.
wish I would have known, you know.
Yep. Yep. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had a similar. My first convention was the year. I think it was the year after Vegas. So it was Minnesota, which is where I live. So it was easy for me to get to. But
Right.
yeah, similar thing. You walk in. I mean, I walk in and the food is like, hard boiled eggs, soft muffins. I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. And then there are a bunch of, yeah, I mean, awkward, weird people, but a lot of non-awkward people. But whatever,
Yeah.
whoever was there, it was just like like a reunion almost, where you didn't really have to
Mhm.
like catch up with anybody because you just knew what life is like in many ways, at least psychologically.
And what really kind of blew me away in Vegas, especially was, I mean, here are people at all parts of their like professional careers, parents, I mean, whatever, and everyone's just like really strong and like coping, you know. I mean, I don't want to say across the board, but most people are doing pretty much okay,
Yeah,
and I just think that's kind of amazing to me. I mean, we could all be at home just like with four fans turned on, not leaving the house, but we're not.
yeah,
That's pretty cool.
yeah. But they could also be kind of selective of people who are, have the kind of proactive enough or have the courage to kind of go out and meet people are probably the ones who might be bottling it up, but also able to cope.
Yeah.
There are probably a lot of people who just never leave the house at all, and are probably suffering a lot more in some remote parts of the world.
I
Um,
actually, now that you say that, I 100% agree, and that's, I guess, where my concern is just, sure, there are those of us who can cope or have to go to work or whatever, but I mean, I do know of folks that really struggle, and that's the scary part of this.
yeah,
It
but
does feel like a tightrope sometimes.
hmm going back to what you said about kids, I'm glad that well, one of my main concerns is always like a lot of these people are, probably like super smart, like Lyle, and suffering in school and kind of like losing, kind of missing out on a lot of their potential. And I'm hoping that all the, that's why I'm so glad there was a separate track for parents and families and kids to kind of like help them cope and kind of reach whatever potential they have. Because that'd be so sad if kids are just kind of like, missing out on success in life because of this.
It's a good point. You know, I think back and it took me 7.5 years to get through college. I mean, some of it was I was really broke, but some of it was I just didn't want to be in that environment, you know,
Yeah.
and maybe that was like a subliminal kind of it's you know, not the most greatest place for someone with misophonia. I mean, and not to mention the work environment. I mean, I don't know how you cope. We talked about that a little bit at the conference, but you know, every day is a new challenge.
Yeah, so yeah, we guess we didn't talk about what kind of work do you do? Like what kind of, well, even more importantly, what kind of office environment are you in?
It's a mostly an open office, but I did manage to get myself a very small office with a
Mm-hmm.
door to close.
Did you ask for that,
Um,
or did
I
they?
did.
Yeah.
I did, but I spent a lot of years in cubicle land, probably more than I've had in an office.
Mm-hmm.
And I do project management, so it's a lot of meetings, but it's also a lot of just heads down desk time, so it can be done anywhere. Um, and I'm lucky enough to work in higher ed, so I was able to get an accommodation over the summer. I was just realizing that being in my open office environment it was causing a lot of stress, you know, just it's impossible to go meet with a colleague who's, you know, munching on
Mm-hmm.
chips all day or an apple. And so I worked with my HR department and they approved me to telework every other day, and that's been life changing.
Wow, every other day. That's pretty good. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Great.
And
Yeah.
and did you mention misophonia, or was it
I
just kind of
did.
yeah? Okay.
I
And
did.
how's their
I've just
initial
figured
reaction? What was their initial
they have
reaction?
no idea what it was. It was
Okay.
actually a really stressful experience. I mean, I won't undersell it.
Yeah.
Um, but I felt kind of like what you mentioned with going to your, you know, getting a physical. I want it on the record because I don't want it to be a surprise for the next person and the next person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, I got a letter from my audiologist who's great. She does know about misophonia, and she fitted me with the, you know, the white noise devices. She wrote a great letter, and so I just filled out the paperwork, talked to a bunch of HR people, and just explained what it is and what I wanted. So I'm allowed to telework every other day, and I am not required to go to meetings where the main, event is like lunch or
Ah,
food or whatever.
interesting.
Yep. So I've already missed one, but this is the thing, right? I missed one all hands meeting because it was held over lunch with food,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so I didn't get to go. So I feel like that does have an implication as far as networking or just being present and visible.
It's a
Um,
step, though. I mean, this is a, this that at
yep.
least is a big step.
But I also didn't have to future trip for 2 weeks about a lunch meeting I was going to have to sit
Yep.
through. So that was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's one thing. Another initiative I'd like to see happen more. I'm probably sound like a broken record now. Just how HR could be kind of a secret weapon in spreading awareness and also changing the work environment for people who are working 9 to 5 in an office.
Well, I think, we kind of hesitate as a community, but in the U.S., we have the Americans with Disabilities Act. I know
Hmm.
Canada has a lot of protections too. It may not be every country, but we really can take advantage of the protections in these sorts of legal, um, whatever provisions. And we had that wonderful attorney at the convention in Denver talking about it, and those provisions are there for a reason. So I'm fully support anyone who wants to exercise them. And I know, Marcia writes a lot of accommodation letters for students. Um, we just have to ask.
Yeah, we have to ask, and also I think advocate that. Also come at it with an angle of it's unemployment is low. It's hard to find good candidates. If you're the kind of company that's serving food all the time and not paying attention to this, you might be losing out on talent. Like
Yeah.
it's going to affect your bottom line. So that might be an angle which we want to, especially in the industry I'm in tech. It's hard to get talented engineers, and as Marcia said,
Oh, right.
30% of her clients are engineers. So that could start to
Wow.
have like a real material impact. I don't know, just another way to nudge nudge
And
the
do
greater
you feel like,
society.
well, yeah, and do you feel like you have enough flexibility at work to accommodate what you need, or do you
I
have to
work from
ask?
home now, so I kind of
Oh, that's right.
yeah,
Okay. So you just
yeah.
have to negotiate with your family.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty much the only, yeah, most of the time I'm the only one home, and I'm have my little office on, in the attic, and so it's far enough away from the street too, and yeah, it works for me. But
So do you
I've
find,
been
and
in.
I don't mean to turn the tables here and
Go
interview
for it.
you, but I do have a question. So when I was requesting this accommodation, my audiologist said, "Well, I'm just worried you're going to isolate yourself more." Um, and that comment really took me by surprise, and I thought about it, and I mean, I'm isolating myself anyway. I just hide in my office at work if I don't feel like interacting with someone who's having their big bowl of carrots. But do you find that the more you like telework and retreat to the attic, like the less you want to come out, or does it more prepare you for the times that you do want to interact?
Yeah, I think for me personally, it's more the latter. I know for a lot of people, especially in winter states like mine, it can really be depressing. But no, for me, I have a pretty good sense of when I need to go. I can go out, run an errand, go for a walk, go to the gym, whatever, in the middle of the day. So that doesn't affect me too much. And I communicate with a small team over Slack. We do video calls when we need to, but and so that's all fine. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this for like other engineers who are coming right out of college and just being siloed for their entire career. I mean,
Right.
for like whatever 20 years, I've worked in every size company in every possible environment, office, closed door office to like a large open office, small open office, condos, basements. So like, I've worked in kind of any environment. So I kind of like, this is just another thing that I now prefer. But I don't mind social interaction. But I also definitely don't mind, have no problem working on my own because I just know I know when I need to interact with other people, and it just works.
Yeah.
If you're totally siloed from the beginning, then yeah, there's a lot of things you won't really know when it's time to go and maybe collaborate with somebody or help them have ask for help, or get them to maybe pair program with you, or just work something out on a whiteboard. I think with that experience, I have better sense. So working from home works well for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you almost need the, I don't want to say the white knuckle experience, but you do need to be in that work environment so you later can know, okay, this is what I need, or this is when I need to be present or visible or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely helps to have all different perspectives in your background before you just close the door in the attic. you know, because then,
I'm so
yeah,
jealous. Yeah.
if I started that at like age whatever 22, 23, I would be a different person now. I mean, yeah, I might be I might have had less triggers, but career wise, I don't think it would have been very good. So now that I'm an old man, works a little bit better.
So, with the holidays looming,
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question.
is that your next one? I was wondering
Yeah,
if
I
we're
mean,
gonna touch
it's
on
not.
it.
I don't have. Yeah, as you know, I don't really have like going back
Yeah.
to this question. I kind of go all over the place, but yeah, we happen to be recording. I don't know. So I don't know when this is going to go live. I have so many amazing conversations, and people
That's
have
great.
done
We'll do
interviews.
it for
Hmm.
Thanksgiving 2020.
Yeah, yeah, or Easter or whatever. I mean, there's always a holiday
Yeah,
coming up. So
always.
for the holiday that is this week, I'm hosting, but plenty of rooms with doors, and so that's not a problem. I'm also lucky to have. I'm also my folks who are coming over. We get to choose who comes over. So and we like everybody, obviously, love everyone. So it's good. I have a lot of escape rooms, and it's going to be good company. And if I ever need to get out of the house, I'm fortunate to know a lot, almost every neighbor on the block. So
Wow.
it's easy to just kind of go and have a beverage or something with somebody, and then come back. So it is something that we all consider. And so how about you? How about you? What's going on? What are your plans?
It's. I don't host. I live in a studio apartment, so having one person over is really stressful. I can't even
Yeah,
imagine like my whole family. But
right.
yeah, I'll go to my family. My sister lives south of town, and so she always hosts a big dinner, and it's really fun. The only thing I stress out about is the sit down dinner part of it.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty tight quarters, and it's pretty obvious if you have to get up. And I mean, um, last year in my video chat we talked about this a lot, and someone had mentioned, it could be really positive to just say to your host, "Hey, I might need to just step out for a minute,
Hmm.
and everything's fine. I don't, the conversation doesn't need to stop. I'll come back. I might just need to like gather myself for a second."
Yep.
And so I let my sister know that, and I ended up being fine. It's just, there's a lot of baby carrots and that kind of thing at the snack table. So, um, I do kind of practice my CIA seating, as I
Yeah.
think I mentioned earlier.
Right.
I'm just very strategic, but I also make the place cards, so I do kind of take control of that whole seating situation.
Yeah, we didn't have a lot of these kinds of growing up in a Muslim town. We didn't have a lot of these kinds of holidays where like tons of people had to sit down
Uh
and
huh.
eat for holidays. So that was kind of relatively new for me, um, but yeah, I mean, that's great. I just mentioned some. I mean, if you're gonna be invited somewhere, or you're gonna be hosting, you're probably gonna be around people who will understand if you need to step
Yeah.
out. And then the other thing is, I just try to eat as fast as I can, and maybe help out in the kitchen or something. Or there's always something that
Yeah.
has to be done, cleaned or whatever.
Yeah. I'm finding that most of us are the people volunteering to help clean up or
Yep.
take the compost out or walk the dog or
Oh, that's a
whatever.
good one. Take the compost out. Yes.
Oh,
Maybe have
totally.
a strategic spill somewhere that we can kind of like mop up later.
Oops.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Or refresh everyone's drinks. I mean,
yep.
they think we're great hosts, but mostly we're just trying to stay mobile. It might be a thing. I mean, I think it would be interesting if there were maybe broader research. So, there's the brain stuff, but it would be very interesting to know kind of what fields people tend to go in. And I mean, I know we've all talked informally and it kind of runs the gamut, but I mean, your job sounds like the kind of the dream environment, honestly.
it took many years to get to
Yeah,
this and yeah
of
place,
course.
but yeah, I mean,
It's
in
a
San
cool.
Francisco, I was in like a 600 square foot I guess kind of townhouse. So, but luckily, it was just just my my wife and I and child, so it was totally fine. Having going back to college and having roommates, like that's another reason why I'm kind of happy that the kids are having the resources that they have, because college is kind of can be a free for all, not just in class, but like who you get as roommates or on your floor in your dorm,
Yeah,
right?
that's true. I actually,
Cafeterias, cafeterias are
I
almost
want.
like a daily Thanksgiving. So,
It's true. Although I have to say, I work in higher ed, and the options
mm,
students have now are actually pretty wonderful. I mean, it would have been great to have this when I was in college, but I'm happy for the students now. Um, although, being in close proximity with people, you do learn things too. So I feel like it kind of cuts both ways if you have the tools to be able to handle it, you know. Um,
what kind of stuff are you seeing in higher ed that are they accommodations or just quieter, I don't know, quieter rooms or technology?
Accommodations, yeah, accommodations. I do know in some of the classrooms there's enough technology that you could plug into the audio if you needed
Oh,
to,
mm-hmm.
which would have been great, to kind of not listen to all the commotion around you. And just the dining options, it's not like there's one dining hall. I mean, I'm at a fairly large university, but they have so many options. There's, little cafes on campus or like the big kind of dining hall areas, so you can go wherever. But that said, it doesn't necessarily build a real strong sense of community that you would
Mm-hmm.
get if everybody's kind of in the same place. But maybe the least of their worries, I don't know. They're
Right.
pretty stressed out.
Gotcha.
And also, just think about like how common it is to see anyone walking around with the big headphones on or AirPods or whatever. I mean, it's no big deal.
Yep. So now that, I mean, you were kind of, at least for a while, active in the association, but you've met some coworkers. Do you how do you talk to friends about this,
Um,
or people, like close
so
people in
that's
your life, relationships, whatnot?
That's probably my big gap. I mean, my significant other for sure knows about it and is very protective, which is great. I wouldn't say most of my friends are very aware. I mean, I've mentioned it.
Yeah,
They just don't have much of an understanding. And in
goes
fact,
over their head and just move on.
yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know how you are. I just really don't want to make a big deal about it.
yeah.
I just kind of just don't. I also feel like it's not something I would mention casually because I don't want anyone to use it as ammunition.
Mm-hmm.
I've had that happen. Someone eats a carrot and says, "Oh, is this the kind of thing that bothers you?" And I have to restrain myself. Um, I don't know. I feel like I still experience a fair amount of shame, for lack of a better word,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or
Guilt,
just I just
shame. Mm-hmm.
feel, yeah. I just don't want to talk about it. I mean, it consumes a lot of my waking thoughts anyway.
Yep.
Um, So a few friends are in the know. I wouldn't say most of them know much about it. I would say on social media I'm really quiet about it, and I don't know why, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, like you said, like it takes so much of our waking time. We're so happy to, we'll spend all this money to go to conventions, and we're so happy to, like, talk to everybody about it. But yeah, just not. I think it's with all of us. It's that years of guilt and shame, in which we don't really want to. We want to. Yeah, we don't want. We're not ready to kind of like take it totally mainstream yet. Although,
No, and I honestly I don't know, Dill. I haven't figured out a really. I don't have my elevator speech ready
your
with the
pitch.
phone yet.
Yeah,
Yeah, the pitch. It just feels like it takes a really long time to explain, and like
yeah.
I always have that moment where I see the look on someone's face and they're like, either they're like, "Oh yeah, things bother me too," or "I have no idea what you're talking about."
Yep.
Um, and at that point, I just kind of give up, preemptively give up.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the whole idea of it exhausts us anyways. I mean, the experience with it. So, why? Yeah, we just don't want to. Right. I don't know. You
I
know
do
what I
have,
mean.
yeah,
I know what you mean.
I am a short story writer, and I do have
Hmm.
thoughts of I want to incorporate this somehow into fiction, but it needs to be more organic. I'm not gonna just write like the Misophonia story. So I do have hopes of incorporating it in a more creative fashion. I just haven't figured out how. I don't know. The way I write is fairly organic anyway. I don't generally go in with a mission, so I think it'll happen. I also think it's kind of too close to me in some ways, and it's
Hmm.
harder to write about things that you feel kind of emotionally attached to. So I don't know. I'm still working on it.
No, yeah, but
It's a life goal.
it's organic. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, yeah, this might be a good spot to, I guess, start wrapping up. Is there? Well, first of all, as we know, there's tons of people. Well, we know a lot of people who are relatively open about it. There's a lot of people who have no plans to share with anybody. Do you have any kind of, I don't know, anything you want to, any advice or anything you want to tell people who are living with a lot of, there could be a lot of people in homeschooled right now who are, you know, suffering at home. Any kind of tips for them?
Yeah, I think about that a lot actually. I mean, the two things that I think resonated the most with me when I was really starting to explore and learn is, do find community wherever you can, and we're really lucky that we can do it online. I mean, Reddit has a great
Hmm.
couple of great subreddits or threads about misophonia. You can lurk all you want, but it's helpful. Um, and then just finding some way to be authentic with it has been helpful for me. Even just being open, with one good friend, or going to the convention and meeting some people. It's liberating, and
Okay, yeah, that's a great way
there's
of putting
no
it.
there's no path. We all just have to figure out what's going to be a good
Hmm.
kind of healthy next step for all of us. So
Yep. Cool. Well, Elise, thanks. This is great. It's good to finally talk to you again since the convention. And cool. Well,
And thank you so much. This was great. I really appreciate you organizing this, and
yeah.
what a great way to start the week. Thanks a lot.
Thank you as always for listening. Please follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Misophonia Podcast. And we're also on Twitter at Misophonia Show. Leave a rating or review on iTunes and it will help more people discover the podcast. Theme music is by Moby, and until next week, wishing you peace and quiet.